The Koran people had once lived among the stars like any other proud civilization. They were known in many systems for their calm nature and their love for science. Across the galaxy, they had built a reputation for careful research, patient thinking, and a strong belief that knowledge should always be used to help life grow, not to control it. For many years, this belief made them respected. But slowly, in ways no one expected, it also made them dangerous in the eyes of their leaders. What began as simple disagreements eventually turned into something far more serious. The ruling powers of the galaxy had grown suspicious of anything that challenged their strict political rules. The Koran's studies in genetics and peaceful biological engineering work meant to help cure diseases and repair damaged ecosystems were suddenly labeled as reckless innovation. Their methods were questioned, then criticized, then condemned. One accusation followed another until the Koran found themselves caught in the middle of a political storm they never meant to start at first. No one believed the situation would escalate. Many Koran scientists continued their research, thinking the council would settle everything calmly. But the council did not calm down. Instead, it made a shocking decision. All researchers and families connected to the Koran science programs were to be stripped of citizenship. Their homes were taken. Their rights were removed. They were no longer citizens of their own worlds. They were declared outcasts. The decision spread fear through every Koran household. Families who had lived peacefully for generations suddenly had only hours to pack their belongings. Some carried small containers with clothes. Others took old books or memory crystals. Parents held their children tightly, unsure what would happen next. No one shouted or resisted. The Koran culture valued calm and patience, even in fear. But their quiet behavior did not protect them from the harsh new rules. Within a few days, thousands were forced onto old transport ships and pushed away from their own land. It didn't feel real. Many stared through the windows as the worlds they loved grew smaller and smaller behind them. Some of the older Koran whispered to each other, wondering how everything had gone so wrong so quickly. The younger ones asked their parents if they were going somewhere safe. The parents replied gently, even though they didn't know the answer themselves. The fleet that carried them into deep space was never meant for long journeys. The ships were old, their systems tired, their engines slow. There were no luxury rooms or clean corridors. Some compartments leaked air and had to be sealed. The lighting flickered often. Still, the Koran made the best of what they had. They cleaned the ships, repaired what they could, and organized small routines to keep their spirits steady. Leading them was Commander Vey, a Koran who had previously worked as a researcher, not a soldier. Before all this, he had spent his days studying star patterns and teaching young students about planets. Leadership was not something he had ever dreamed of. But when his people needed someone calm enough to guide them, he stepped forward without hesitation. He wasn't loud or powerful. He simply had a steady presence that made others feel safe. Every day, Commander Vey walked through the ships, checking on the families living in crowded halls. He reassured elders who missed their gardens, comforted children who didn't understand why they had left home, and listened to the quiet worries of those who feared the galaxy had turned against them. Even when he felt exhausted, he didn't show it. He believed that if he stayed steady, the others might feel steady too. The refugee fleet traveled slowly, drifting from one region of space to another. They stayed far away from trade routes, hoping to avoid patrols. The council had spread the message that the Koran were dangerous criminals. Any ship that spotted them was required to report their location. Because of this, the Koran kept their lights low and their ship signatures hidden. They moved like ghosts through empty star fields. Food supplies became a constant worry. Some ships had ration packs that were already decades old. Many meals were simple and repeated soft grain cubes, mineral drinks, and nutrient-paced. No one complained. They all understood the situation. Even so, the lack of fresh food made many feel weak. Children asked what real fruit tasted like. Adults tried to describe it, but after so many years, their memories felt thin. The life support systems worked harder than ever. Air filters clogged every few weeks and had to be cleaned by hand. Water purifiers were slow and required constant repair. Some nights, the ships grew cold when the heating units failed. But the Koran adapted. They wrapped themselves in thermal blankets and huddled together in family groups. In those moments, even in the cold, they found warmth in each other's presence. Despite the challenges, there were still moments of beauty. Through the windows of their ships, the Koran watched silent nebula clouds glowing in soft colors. They saw giant stars flicker like lanterns in the dark. The children pressed their hands against the glass, amazed by the endless sky. For a few minutes each day, the fear and weariness seemed far away, but hope was difficult to maintain when there was no destination. The fleet drifted from sector to sector, searching for any world that might welcome them. Most planets were either uninhabited or forbidden. Others detected the fleet and immediately sent warnings to leave. The Koran remained polite, always apologizing before changing direction. But each refusal felt like a gentle, painful cut to their hearts. After months of wandering, the fleet's condition declined. Engines overheated. Medical supplies ran dangerously low. Some families began to feel the weight of despair. Quiet conversations spread through the ships at night, whispers about whether they would ever find a home again. Commander Vey heard these whispers too, and although they worried him deeply, he tried not to let anyone see his concern. One day, while studying charts in the dim glow of the command room, Commander Vey noticed something unusual. A small star system had appeared on their long-range scans. The system was simple, with only a few planets, but one planet immediately caught attention. It was a blue world, covered in water, with a thin atmosphere and a surprisingly rich environment. What surprised him even more was that the world showed signs of a developing civilization. The scans were faint but clear, radio signals, satellites, small stations in orbit. The civilization was not advanced by galactic standards. It had no faster-than-light travel, no large space cities, and no advanced energy shields. It was a young world, still discovering the universe. The planet was called Earth. Commander Vey studied the readings carefully. A non-FTL species was not expected to handle complex political issues, especially ones involving exiles from a distant part of the galaxy. They might see the Koran as invaders or strangers to fear. But the fleet's fuel reserves were nearly gone. Their options were shrinking. Earth was the only world within reach that showed life, communication, and potential kindness. The next choice was one of the hardest he had ever made. The Koran could not keep drifting. Their people were tired. Their ships were failing. And the children more than anything deserved a chance to live somewhere safe. After hours of quiet thought, he gathered the leaders of the refugee groups. He explained the situation simply and honestly. They had found a world. A young world. A world that might not understand them at first, but one that had not declared them enemies. The leaders agreed to take the risk, though everyone felt nervous. No one knew what Earth would do. Would humans welcome them? Would they panic? Would they react with fear? There was no way to guess. With a calm breath, Commander Vey recorded a message. His voice was steady but warm. He introduced the Koran, explained their situation as refugees, and respectfully asked for asylum. The message was sent toward Earth, carried by a slow beam of light across the emptiness. The fleet watched silently, waiting for a reply. Minutes passed, then hours. Then at last, a response arrived. It was short. Just a single sentence. If you need help, Come down." The Koran stared at the words in disbelief. Some covered their mouths. Others let out soft breaths of relief. The children clapped. Commander Vey closed his eyes for a moment, feeling a weight lift from his chest. For the first time in a long time, the Koran felt a spark of hope. A small world, far from the politics and power of the galaxy, had offered them something no one else had: a chance, a beginning. Home they had not expected to find Dot when Earth sent that simple message: "If you need help, come down." The Koran fleet fell into a kind of stunned silence. No one had expected the answer to be so warm, so open, or so quick. For years, they had been turned away by every world they approached. Some planets ignored them completely. Others sent cold warnings. A few threatened them if they didn't leave their airspace. But Earth had not hesitated. Commander Vey stood in the center of the command room, reading the message again and again. It almost didn't seem real. Around him, the crew whispered to each other, unsure whether to celebrate or to remain cautious. This was the first friendly response they had received since their exile began. It was a single sentence, but to the Koran, it felt like a door slowly opening after months of wandering in darkness. Still, even with the message, the Koran were nervous. They had no idea what humans looked like. They didn't know how humans behaved. They had never studied Earth closely, because Earth wasn't one of the galaxy's major worlds. It was too young, too isolated, too far from the usual travel paths. Most advanced civilizations barely mentioned it. It was considered a planet still growing, still learning how to reach for the stars. But maybe that was exactly why the Koran felt a small thread of hope. A young world might still have room for compassion, something many older civilizations had forgotten. "Commander." Vey asked his navigators to set a course for Earth. The ships turned slowly toward the blue planet, engines humming softly. Some of the younger Koran pressed their faces to the windows, watching the distant world grow larger with each passing hour. It was beautiful even from far away. A sphere of oceans and clouds, glowing gently under the sun. As the fleet approached, Earth's satellites detected the incoming ships. Of course, humans reacted with panic at first. Around the world, news stations flashed alerts. People gathered around televisions and mobile screens, pointing at grainy images of strange objects in the sky. Some thought it was a mistake. Others thought it was a hoax. But when governments confirmed the presence of real spacecraft, the world's attention locked on the unfolding events. In control rooms and government offices, discussions erupted. Some officials argued that they should close their airspace immediately. Others said they should wait and learn more. A few believed the ships might be attacking. But then Earth received the earlier message the Koran had sent polite, calm, and filled with quiet desperation. That message changed everything. Earth's leaders gathered quickly in emergency meetings. Many of them had never dealt with anything beyond their own borders, let alone outer space. Scientists were invited to help make decisions, though even they had never expected to deal with real extraterrestrial contact so soon. After hours of conversation, they reached a decision that surprised even themselves. They would not reject these travelers. They would not show fear or hostility. They would do something simple, something that came naturally to them. They would help. A landing area was chosen away from major cities to avoid causing chaos. A research facility stood there, quiet, secure, and far from crowds. Earth sent coordinates to the Koran fleet, inviting them to land safely. The Koran prepared cautiously. Their technology was far more advanced than Earth's, but they didn't want to intimidate anyone. They lowered their shields, dimmed their landing lights, and moved slowly to avoid startling the people watching from below. As the ships entered Earth's atmosphere, the view was breathtaking. Fields, forests, oceans, mountains, colors, and textures they had not seen in years filled their windows. Some of the Koran grew emotional. They had missed real landscapes. They had lived so long surrounded by metal walls and recycled air that the sight of a real sky felt almost unreal. Clouds drifted lightly past the windows. The ships shook gently as they descended toward the landing zone. Earth's air was thicker, warmer, and full of scents the Koran weren't used to. Even through the filtration systems, they could sense the freshness of natural wind. On the ground, humans waited. Soldiers were present, but they kept a respectful distance. Scientists stood closer, wearing protective suits just in case. Many of them were trying to stay calm, but their hands trembled slightly from excitement or nerves. They had spent their whole lives studying theories about distant worlds. And now those worlds were descending from the sky in front of them. When the Koran ships landed, dust rose around them, and the engines slowly powered down. No one moved at first. Humans and Koran stared at each other from a distance, each side unsure how to begin. Finally, the main ramp of the first ship lowered. The Koran stepped out slowly, careful not to seem threatening. Their posture was gentle, their hands held open as a sign of peace. Their eyes were different from humans, larger, with soft patterns of color, but there was kindness in them. Their skin had a faint shimmer under the sunlight, something Earth's atmosphere enhanced. The humans watching from the front lines felt their fear melt a little. These travelers didn't look dangerous. They looked tired. They looked hopeful. They looked like people who had been through far too much. A human scientist stepped forward, followed by a translator device. She wasn't chosen because she was the smartest or the most experienced. She was chosen because she had a calm way of speaking, even in stressful moments. She offered a small smile, friendly, nervous, honest. "Welcome to Earth," she said softly. The translator repeated the words in the Koran language. Commander Vey bowed his head respectfully. He knew this moment needed to be handled with patience. Every eye on the planet was focused on this first meeting. "We thank you," he replied in his own language, which the translator echoed for the humans. "We come in peace. We come with hope." His words spread quickly across Earth through live broadcasts. Billions of people heard them at the same time. People watching from homes, shops, parks, and hospitals felt their hearts soften. There was something sincere in the way the Koran spoke. Something humble. The humans invited the Koran inside the facility for a calm conversation. As they walked together, people on both sides studied each other with curiosity. Some humans noticed that the Koran walked lightly, almost silently, as if trying not to disturb the ground. Some Koran noticed that humans made small gestures while they talked, moving their hands, raising their eyebrows, which they found charming. Inside the facility, chairs were brought out, water was offered, and a translator device was placed in the center of the room. The atmosphere was gentle, even though everyone felt nervous. The human leaders asked simple questions first. Where did the Koran come from? Why were they here? Were they in danger? Commander Vey answered truthfully, explaining their exile, their long journey, and their need for safety. He did not speak with anger or bitterness. He simply explained that his people had nowhere left to go. As the meeting continued, more and more humans realized something important. These visitors were not demanding anything. They were not trying to control Earth or make any threats. They were simply asking for a chance to live somewhere peacefully. Outside the building, crowds began to gather, not close to the ships, but far behind the security barriers. Some held signs that said, "Welcome," in large letters. Others waved Earth flags as a signal of peace. A few families brought handmade drawings created by children, showing friendly figures holding hands with alien shapes. These small gestures reached the Koran quickly through broadcasts, and the sight touched them deeply. Children inside the facility peeked from behind adults, curious but unafraid. One little girl stared at a Koran child with wide eyes. The Koran child stared back, equally amazed. After a long moment, both of them smiled shyly. For the first time in years, Commander Vey felt something warm inside his chest. The fear and dread that had been sitting there since the exile slowly loosened. Earth may not have been a powerful world, but it was a kind one. The meeting continued for hours, filled with honest discussion. Humans asked if the Koran planned to stay forever, or only until they felt safe. The Koran explained they wished to rebuild their lives, work alongside humans, and give back to the world that accepted them. Later that night, as the sun set, the Koran stepped outside to feel natural air on their skin. Some of them took deep breaths of Earth's fresh wind for the first time, their eyes shining. Others simply stared at the stars above, amazed to see them from a real sky instead of a ship window. Commander Vey walked a little away from the group and looked around quietly. He had been responsible for his people's survival for so long that he often forgot to feel things for himself. But standing on Earth's soil, beneath its warm sky, he couldn't help but feel moved. A world that should have been frightened had chosen kindness. Instead, a world that had never seen a Koran before had opened its doors without hesitation. World that was small compared to the galaxy had shown a heart far bigger than any great civilization. Earth had accepted them in Dot, and for the first time in a very long time. The future did not feel impossible. The first few days after the Koran landed on Earth felt like a strange dream for both sides. Everything was new, everything was uncertain, and yet there was a quiet excitement in the air. Humans and Koran had seen each other, spoken to each other, and most importantly, nothing bad had happened. That alone was enough to soften many hearts. Still, there were many things Earth's governments needed to learn before letting the Koran settle freely. The leaders wanted to understand their culture, their needs, their technology, and whether they carried any risks, medical or environmental. They didn't want to make mistakes, but they also didn't want to make the Koran feel unwanted. It was a careful balance. This was how the human scientist who had first breeded them became the main link between the two groups. She didn't volunteer for the job. She simply treated the Koran with honesty and calmness, and that made everyone, humans and Koran, trust her. Her gentle way of speaking helped conversations flow more easily. Even when she didn't understand something, she asked with genuine curiosity, not fear. She brought notebooks, simple human tools, and a portable translator. And she met the Koran every morning at the research facility. The facility itself was a mix of old metal walls and clean glass rooms, not very advanced compared to Koran ships, but organized and welcoming in its own way. Humans had placed soft chairs and warm lights inside, hoping to make the space feel less like an interrogation room and more like a meeting place. During the early meetings, the Koran stayed polite and formal. They were grateful but cautious. They had spent so long running from danger that it felt strange to relax. Even when humans offered them water or snacks, many Koran hesitated before accepting. They didn't want to offend anyone, but they also didn't want to appear demanding. A scientist noticed their hesitation and began offering things more gently. Instead of placing items directly in front of them, she would set things on a neutral table and step back, allowing the Koran to decide for themselves. Small changes like that helped the two groups grow more comfortable. One day, she asked something simple. "What do you miss the most from your home?" The question was innocent, but it touched deeply. The Koran grew quiet. Some looked down. Some looked away. A few children clung to their parents' arms. Commander Vey answered first. His voice was soft. "We miss the feeling of belonging," he said. "Our world had gardens, soft winds, and peaceful learning halls. We never thought we would lose them." He paused for a moment, then added, "But we are grateful to be here." Earth has shown us kindness we did not expect. The scientist nodded gently. We will learn together, she said, and so they did. A small area of the facility was turned into a temporary living space for a few Corin groups. They didn't want to leave their ships completely yet, because that was the only place that still felt like home. But they agreed to spend part of each day on Earth's soil. It helped them slowly adjust to the new environment. Outside the facility, curious humans gathered behind the barriers every day. They weren't allowed too close yet, but they waved, held signs, and sometimes even sang small welcome songs. One group of school children visited with their teachers. They held bright posters showing pictures they had drawn of stars, planets, and friendly aliens smiling. When the Corin children saw the drawings, they felt shy but happy. A few of them even waved back, which caused the human kids to cheer loudly. It became clear very quickly. The youngest among both species adapted the fastest. Human children asked endless questions, both innocent and funny. Do you eat pizza? How many toes do you have? Can you jump high? Do you sleep like us? The Corin children asked questions too, though more quietly. Why do humans laugh so loudly? Why do birds fly in groups? Why is everything on Earth green and blue? The humans explained everything with patience, and the Corin listened carefully. It was almost like two groups of explorers discovering a new world together. Inside the facility, scientists from different fields arrived to learn about the Corin respectfully. They didn't poke or prod. They didn't treat the Corin like test subjects. Instead, they asked simple things: how their bodies worked, what kinds of foods they could eat, what materials they were allergic to, and whether Earth's bacteria could affect them. The Corin shared their own studies as well. They explained how their ships recycled water, how their suits filtered air, and how their medical tools worked. The scientists were amazed, not because the technology was flashy, but because it was thoughtful and efficient. The Corin believed in balance, not overuse. One day, after many calm discussions, the scientists took Commander Vey and a few other Corin to see a greenhouse near the facility. It wasn't very large, just a simple human building filled with plants. But the moment the Corin stepped inside, their eyes widened. They touched the leaves gently, amazed by the texture. They leaned close to smell the natural scent of soil. One Corin elder placed her hand on a small tomato plant and whispered something in her own language. Later, Commander Vey explained that she had once been a gardener on their homeworld. For the first time in years, the elder smiled fully. The scientist noticed this and said quietly, "You are welcome to visit the greenhouse any time." The elder's eyes shone with gratitude. As days passed, Earth's governments grew more confident that the Corin meant no harm. Public opinion slowly shifted too. At first, humans were scared because they didn't know what to expect. But as more information came out, pictures of Corin children helping clean the facility, videos of gentle conversations, and news clips showing peaceful cooperation, people began feeling less afraid. Not everyone accepted the Corin immediately. A few groups across the world were worried or suspicious. Some people created rumors, saying the Corin were hiding something. But the truth was simple. The Corin just wanted safety. And most humans understood that what truly helped the relationship grow stronger was something unexpected. The Corin offered to assist Earth with small repairs and maintenance work. One morning, the scientist walked into the facility and found a few Corin engineers studying a broken climate control unit. The human technicians had been struggling with it for weeks, but the Corin found the problem within minutes. They didn't boast or brag. They simply smiled politely and explained how they fixed the issue. Soon after, the Corin also helped repair a weather satellite that had been drifting off course. They suggested gentle improvements to Earth's water filtration systems. They even volunteered to help plant new trees near the facility to replace old ones that had died. humans were surprised, not because the Koran were capable, but because they were so willing to help without expecting anything in return. This simple cooperation made people on Earth feel a deep respect for their new visitors. One afternoon, as sunlight filled the facility courtyard, a small moment happened that touched everyone who saw it. A Koran child noticed a human boy struggling to carry a box of supplies. Without speaking, she walked over, lifted the other side of the box, and carried it with him. The boy looked surprised at first, then smiled. Together, they placed the box on a table. A few adults watched quietly, moved by the innocence of that simple act. That same evening, Commander Vey stood outside, looking at the horizon. Earth's sky glowed with soft colors: orange, pink, gold. He had never seen a sunset quite like it. The air smelled fresh. The ground felt real under his feet. He could hear distant sounds of crickets and rustling leaves. He realized something important. His people were slowly beginning to feel safe again. The fear that once sat inside their hearts was fading. Piece by piece, humans were treating them not as outsiders, but as guests, maybe even as friends in the making. When the scientist joined him outside, she didn't speak right away. She simply stood beside him, watching the sunset too. After a moment, she said quietly, "Your people are doing well here." Commander Vey nodded. "Earth has been patient with us. That is something we have not known in a long time." She looked at him with a small smile. "We are learning too. You're teaching us things we didn't expect." He turned slightly toward her. "Like what?" "You're reminding us that kindness still matters," she said. Those words stayed with him for the rest of the night. Inside the ships, inside the facility, outside with the children, and all across Earth, a slow but powerful connection was forming. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was real. Humans and Koran were beginning to trust each other, not because of treaties or deals, but because of small everyday moments that proved understanding was possible. A shared smile, a helping hand, a quiet sunset. These were the things that built bridges between two worlds, and Earth, for all its imperfections, was proving to be a place where the Koran could finally start to heal. Life slowly began to change for both humans and Koran as days turned into weeks. What had started as simple introductions and cautious meetings was now turning into a real connection. People on Earth began to recognize Koran faces in news reports, and the Koran slowly learned how humans laughed, how they asked questions, and how they expressed emotions so openly. At the temporary living area near the research facility, mornings grew lively. Humans arrived to study the environment with the Koran, and the Koran quietly helped repair broken equipment or organize supplies. Some of the Koran even began keeping small journals, writing about their experiences on this strange, warm planet. But every good change brought new challenges. As the Koran began to spend more time outside the facility, Earth had to think about how to integrate them safely into society without causing fear or confusion. The governments decided to slowly allow small groups of Koran to visit schools, hospitals, and research centers so humans everywhere could understand who they really were. The first visit to a school happened on a sunny morning. A group of Koran children and adults entered a large classroom where human students sat waiting eagerly. The classroom walls were filled with colorful drawings, maps, and science posters. The students whispered to each other excitedly, pointing at the visitors with wide eyes. The teacher welcomed everyone with a warm smile and invited the Koran to sit with the students. At first, there was a soft awkwardness in the room. The human kids didn't know what to say. The Koran kids didn't know how human schools worked. But then one human student raised his hand and asked something simple. "Do you have games on your home planet?" A Koran child answered shyly, "We used to play a quiet memory game with colored stones." Immediately the whole class became curious. They asked to see how it worked. The Korin child demonstrated using pencils and erasers as makeshift game pieces. Within minutes, the entire class was enjoying the game together. Moments like that spread quickly across social media. People all over Earth watched videos of human and Korin kids laughing together, and many felt something warm inside their hearts. But not everyone felt the same way. There were some groups who didn't trust the Korin. They felt threatened by the idea of aliens living on Earth, even peaceful ones. A few people posted negative messages online, warning others about outsiders. Others made online predictions that the Korin were hiding dangerous technology. Even though none of that was true, the governments understood that fear would take time to settle. To help ease tensions, they released information explaining that the Korin had gone through strict health checks and posed no danger. Earth scientists confirmed that the Korin were harmless to humans and the environment. But fear never disappears overnight. Inside the research facility, the Korin could sense the mixed feelings from Earth's population. They were grateful for the kindness they received, but they also felt troubled knowing some people were afraid of them. The Korin never wanted to be a burden. They never wanted to cause fear. They only wanted peace. One afternoon, Commander Vey met with the human scientist who had become their closest ally. They sat in a quiet room with soft lighting and a table between them. Papers, charts, and translation devices were scattered across the table. "There are people on Earth who worry about us," Commander Vey said calmly. "We do not wish to bring conflict. Maybe we should limit our presence until everyone feels safe." The scientist shook her head gently. "No, hiding will only make people more suspicious. You're already helping so much. People just need time to adjust. It's not your fault that some are afraid. Humans fear unfamiliar things." Commander Vey nodded thoughtfully. "On our world, we always taught our children that understanding begins with patience. And that's exactly what we need here," she said with a faint smile. Over the next few weeks, the cooperation between humans and Korin grew deeper. Korin engineers helped Earth repair older satellites and improve their energy efficiency. They didn't offer advanced weaponry or anything dangerous. They only shared safe, small improvements, simple ideas that could make Earth a little better without overwhelming the people. Earth doctors and Korin healers worked together in the medical wing, exchanging gentle techniques and remedies. One doctor showed a Korin healer how certain herbs were used on Earth to reduce stress. In return, the healer shared a relaxing breathing pattern used on the Korin homeworld to calm the mind. It wasn't technology, just knowledge, simple and kind. Meanwhile, families in the nearby towns began noticing Korin visitors walking along the outskirts, exploring Earth's nature carefully. Some local residents waved at them from porches or fences. A few brave people even approached with friendly greetings, offering fruit baskets or handmade gifts. One elderly human woman carried a basket of warm bread to a group of Korin who were observing birds near a lake. She held out the basket with trembling hands and said, "It's not much, but it's homemade." The Korin accepted the bread gently, thanking her with deep respect. They had not tasted homemade food in many years. For them, the gesture was far more important than the bread itself. But despite these beautiful moments, tension still existed in other parts of the world. Some people were worried that helping the Korin might put Earth at risk with other alien civilizations. News stations ran debates about whether Earth should give shelter to so many refugees. Some feared the political consequences. Others feared cultural change. The world was split not aggressively, but quietly in conversations at dinner tables, in online comments, in late-night news programs, even within governments. A few officials expressed concern. They questioned whether Earth was ready for such a big responsibility. They worried about resources, safety, and long-term consequences. But the humans who worked directly with the Korin knew the truth. They saw their kindness every day. They saw their hard work and their gratitude. They knew the Koran were not here to take anything. They were here to rebuild their lives. Earth continued to move forward with careful optimism. One significant moment happened when the Koran were invited to a small community event in a nearby town. It wasn't a big festival, just a simple gathering with music, food stands, and families enjoying an evening together. The town's leaders thought it might help everyone see each other as equals. When the Koran arrived, people were definitely nervous at first. But once the children began playing together, the adults relaxed. A group of musicians invited the Koran to listen to their instruments. The soft string sounds mesmerized them. A few Koran gently tapped their fingers on the table, fascinated by the rhythm. Later that night, a quiet moment took place near the edge of the field. A human father with two young children approached Commander Vey. The children hid behind their father at first, peeking shyly. The man smiled politely and said, "I hope you feel welcome here." Commander Vey bowed his head. "Your world has shown us more kindness than we ever expected." The father nodded. "People will get used to you. It just takes time." One of the children stepped forward and asked softly, "Are you scared of us?" Commander Vey crouched down so their eyes met. "No," he said warmly. "We are not scared of you. You remind us of hope." The child smiled, and that small smile carried more meaning than any speech. Of course, not everything was perfectly smooth. Some miscommunication happened when Koran gestures were misunderstood. A Koran expression of respect looked like a rejection to humans. A human habit of talking loudly startled some Koran children. But each time something went wrong, both sides talked it out patiently. Earth was learning. The Koran were learning. They were learning each other. As more time passed, the Koran became part of small human routines. Their presence at the facility didn't feel strange anymore. Their voices blended into the normal daily sounds: footsteps in hallways, gentle conversations, quiet laughter. Slowly, the thought that the Koran were outsiders began to fade in many hearts. People started seeing them as neighbors, helpers, and friends. And although there were still challenges, the bond between humans and Koran was growing stronger every single day. Both sides were beginning to believe something remarkable. Maybe they really could share this world together. Maybe Earth truly was becoming a home, one built not by power or fear, but by patience, small kindnesses, and simple human warmth. As weeks turned into months, the connection between humans and the Koran deepened in ways no one had predicted. What had begun as an emergency rescue slowly started turning into something much larger. Both sides were discovering that they needed each other in ways they didn't fully understand before. Human communities near the research facility grew more comfortable with the alien visitors. People were no longer startled when a group of Koran passed by on their way to the forests or the lakes. Children waved at them from windows, and the Koran waved back with shy smiles. But even as these small moments of trust spread, there was a question everyone on Earth carefully avoided. How long would the Koran stay here? The Koran themselves wondered the same thing. Their homeworld was gone, lost in a war they never asked for. Their fleet was damaged, their resources limited, and their people still healing. Earth had given them safety, but safety alone did not answer the bigger question of how to rebuild a life. One morning, the research facility held an important meeting that brought together human leaders, scientists, and Koran representatives. Everyone entered the conference hall with a quiet seriousness. The air felt heavy with unspoken worries. The human scientist, who had worked closest with them, began the meeting with calm words. "We've reached a point where we must plan for the future. The Koran needs stability, and Earth needs clarity." Commander Vey nodded. "We do not wish to overstay where we are not wanted, but we also cannot return to a place that no longer exists." A soft silence settled over the room. It wasn't an uncomfortable silence, just the kind that appears when people understand the weight of a moment. A human politician asked gently, "What do your people need to build a future here?" Commander Vey glanced at the small group of Koran beside him. Their expressions were quiet but hopeful. Then he said, "We need a home. Not only shelter, but a place where we can grow food, raise children, work, and live with dignity. We do not wish to be hidden away forever." Several humans exchanged thoughtful glances. They knew he was right. The Koran couldn't spend their entire lives living in temporary shelters. A younger human scientist raised a question. "Would you want your own separate settlement? Or would you prefer to live among us?" The Koran hesitated. They didn't want to appear demanding. After a moment, one of the Koran healers spoke softly. "Some of us may choose to live close to humans. Some may prefer a quiet place of our own. But we do not want to be isolated. We want to be part of this world, not hidden in a corner of it." The meeting continued for hours as both sides discussed options. Humans had concerns about resources, laws, and cultural differences. The Koran worried about causing imbalance or being misunderstood. But despite these worries, both sides shared the same hope. They wanted a peaceful, honest future. After the meeting ended, the Koran returned to their living area. The afternoon sun shone across the compound, lighting up the fields and pathways. A group of human volunteers were helping Koran families plant small gardens. The soil was slightly different from the kind found on the Koran homeworld, but the seeds adapted quickly. One Koran child noticed Commander Vey walking by and hurried to him, carrying a tiny plant. "Look," the child said excitedly, "it's growing." Commander Vey crouched down and examined the small green sprout. "Yes," he said softly, "it is. And so are we." The child smiled proudly and ran back to show the others. Moments like that gave the Koran strength. They were far from home, but they were beginning to feel the comfort of belonging. A few days later, Earth proposed something remarkable. They would allow the Koran to help design a new settlement, a place built with cooperation, not separation. Humans would help with construction, while the Koran contributed knowledge about materials and energy-efficient structures. When the news reached the Koran community, many were overwhelmed with emotion. They did not expect Earth to offer such a generous opportunity. Some Koran cried quietly, covering their faces with their hands. Others hugged each other gently. For the first time in many years, they felt a sense of real hope. Work on the settlement began shortly after. A location was chosen not too far from the facility, a wide valley with fresh water, open fields, and soft hills. It was peaceful, safe, and full of potential. Human engineers and Koran builders worked side by side. The Koran introduced a construction method that used woven mineral fibers, making structures strong but flexible. Humans added their own techniques, making sure everything met Earth's safety standards. At the construction site, a mixture of languages filled the air. Sometimes people didn't fully understand each other, but laughter always helped. One afternoon, a human engineer struggled to carry a large panel. A Koran worker immediately stepped forward to help. Together, they lifted it with ease. The engineer laughed and said, "You're stronger than you look." The Koran worker replied in a soft, amused voice, "And you're lighter than you look." Both laughed again, and the moment became a small symbol of how natural their friendship was becoming. As weeks passed, structures began rising: homes, gardens, community halls, and learning centers. The Koran wanted everything built with care. They didn't want walls that separated them from humans. They wanted a place that humans could visit freely, a place where cultures could blend without pressure. During this time, humans continued inviting the Koran to town events, cultural gatherings, and small celebrations. The Koran attended with deep respect. They loved Earth's music, especially instruments that created gentle sounds. Many Koran enjoyed listening by closing their eyes, letting the melodies sink in. At one event, a small human band played a slow, peaceful tune. A Koran elder placed a hand over their heart and whispered, "Your music carries warmth." It feels like comfort. Hearing that brought tears to the eyes of several humans around them. They realized how much these moments meant. But even as harmony grew, a new worry appeared. News arrived from distant parts of the galaxy that the enemies who destroyed the Koran homeworld were expanding. No one knew if they would ever come near Earth. The Koran feared that their presence might put humans in danger. Many struggled with guilt, wondering if Earth had taken on a burden too heavy. Commander Vey discussed the situation with human leaders privately. "If our enemies discover we are here, Earth might become a target," he warned. The human leader responded calmly, "We will handle that if it ever happens. You came here with nothing but honesty. That means something. Earth does not abandon those it has chosen to protect." Those words stayed with Commander Vey for a long time. They eased his worries, even if the future remained uncertain. Meanwhile, the new settlement continued taking shape. Children, both human and Koran, visited often, running between half-finished paths and playing simple games. Their laughter echoed across the valley. They didn't see each other as different. They didn't care about fears, politics, or the past. They only cared about friendship. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the hills, a small group of Koran and humans stood together at the edge of the construction site. The sky was painted in soft colors, orange, gold, and pink. A gentle wind moved through the valley, carrying the smell of fresh soil and new beginnings. A human volunteer looked at the half-built settlement and said, "This is more than just a town. It's a promise." The Koran beside him nodded slowly. "A promise," they repeated, "and a chance." Everyone fell quiet as they looked at the warm glow of the setting sun touching the new structures. In that moment, it felt like the universe itself was acknowledging their efforts. The Koran had once been cast out by the galaxy. They had wandered, suffered, and nearly lost hope, but Earth had accepted them with patience, kindness, and understanding. And now, a future was forming, not just for the Koran, but for both species together. The path ahead would not be simple. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, fears, and difficult decisions. But there would also be trust, cooperation, and something even stronger. Unity. As night settled over the valley, lights from the nearby towns twinkled like stars. The Koran gazed up at the sky, no longer feeling alone in the vast universe. For the first time since losing their homeworld, they felt the warmth of belonging. For the first time in a long time, they believed in tomorrow. And tomorrow was growing closer. Taking shape one careful step at a time, the new settlement continued to grow day by day. And with each passing week, the valley slowly transformed from an empty stretch of land into a place full of life. Homes with soft curves and light-colored walls stood near pathways made from a mix of human concrete and Koran fiberstone. Gardens were taking shape, and the first rows of crops had already begun to sprout. Humans visited often, helping with tools, planting trees, and teaching the Koran how to use Earth's equipment. The Koran, in return, shared small pieces of their culture gentle songs, calming techniques, quiet humor, and simple designs that made the new houses feel warm and peaceful. But even with all this progress, there was a feeling spreading through both communities, a feeling that something important still needed to happen. They had built trust, built friendships, built homes, but they hadn't yet built a future together in a clear, official way. It was time for a final decision about the Koran's place on Earth. To settle this, a worldwide message was sent out. Leaders, scientists, volunteers, and Koran representatives would gather in the valley for a global meeting. The entire world would be watching. It wasn't just about politics. It was about humanity, deciding what kind of species it wanted to be. The day of the meeting arrived with a calm morning sky. The air was cool, and a gentle breeze moved across the valley. People from different nations arrived in small transport vehicles. The Koran formed a welcoming line near the central gathering area, which had been decorated with simple designs from both cultures. Even though the gathering was serious, it didn't feel tense. Children from nearby towns played near the trees, laughing as they tried to teach a group of young Koran how to skip stones across the small stream that ran through the settlement. Their laughter softened the atmosphere and made everyone breathe easier. When the meeting finally began, the valley grew quiet. Humans and Koran sat together on curved benches arranged in a wide circle. There were cameras in the distance broadcasting the event to millions around the world, but no one paid attention to them. What mattered was the moment. A human leader stood first. His voice was steady but warm. The Koran arrived on Earth with nothing but the hope for safety. In the months since, they have shown honesty, respect, and cooperation. Today, we gather to decide how we move forward together. Then Commander Vey rose. The way he stood showed dignity without pride. We came to your world frightened and empty-handed. You welcomed us with patience. You saw our pain and still opened your doors. We do not want to take anything from Earth. We want to stand with humanity, not behind it or above it. We want to build a future where our cultures live side by side. A soft murmur spread among the humans' approval, understanding, even admiration. The meeting continued with discussions about laws, shared knowledge, cultural exchange, and safety. Everyone spoke calmly. Everyone listened. That alone was a symbol of how far they had come. After several hours of conversation, a human representative approached the center of the circle with a small, handcrafted object. It was a globe of earth carved from wood, placed inside a delicate frame made from Koran fiberstone. It had been prepared together by both species as a symbol of unity. The representative held it in the air and said, "Earth chooses peace. Earth chooses cooperation. And Earth chooses to give the Koran a permanent home here." Applause rose from the humans. The Koran gently touched their hearts, their way of showing deep gratitude. But something unexpected happened next, something the humans did not expect, and something the Koran themselves had not planned. A Koran elder stepped forward with slow and careful steps. Her voice was soft but filled with emotion. "We accept your kindness," she said, "but we also want to give something to Earth." The humans listened closely. "You have shared your land, your shelter, your food, your kindness. We cannot repay you in materials, but we can offer loyalty. From this day forward, we promise that the Koran will protect Earth as if it were our own home. We will stand beside you against any threat or hardship. You gave us a future. Let us help protect yours." The words flowed through the valley like a silent wave. Humans exchanged looks of surprise, warmth, and respect. It wasn't a military promise, it was a heartfelt vow of friendship. The meeting concluded with both species agreeing to work together in peace, learning from each other, and moving forward not as strangers, but as partners in the same universe. Later that evening, after the formal gathering ended, a small celebration took place around the valley. Not a loud festival, just a peaceful gathering with soft lights, simple food, and gentle music. Humans and Koran sat together in small groups, sharing stories of their childhoods, comparing traditions, laughing about misunderstandings from the early days. One human family brought a basket of fruit to share with a group of Koran. A Koran father offered a small woven ornament in return. Children from both sides ran around chasing fireflies, their laughter echoing across the valley dot at the edge of the settlement near a tall hill. Commander Vey stood watching the lights and listening to the distant voices. His heart felt lighter than it had in years. For so long, he had carried the weight of loss, the destruction of their homeworld, the endless wandering, the fear of extinction. Now, for the first time in a long time, he felt something different. He felt peace. A human scientist, the same one who had helped the Korin from the very beginning, walked up beside him. She glanced at the valley below and smiled. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" Commander Vey nodded slowly. "This reminds me of stories from our early days, before war touched our world. Simple moments, light, laughter. You helped build this moment," she said gently. "No," he replied, shaking his head. "We built it together." They stood there quietly, letting the breeze carry the sound of celebration to them. As night deepened, soft lanterns half made by humans, half made by Korin floated upward into the sky. The glowing lights drifted higher, mixing with the stars until they became one with them. The Korin watched with awe, their eyes reflecting the floating lights. On their homeworld, lanterns had been used during ceremonies of hope. Seeing them rise on Earth felt like a sign that their culture wouldn't die after all. It would live here, grow here, and become part of something greater. Under the star-filled sky, children from both species ran around with lanterns in their hands, laughing freely. In that laughter, there was no fear, no hesitation, no sense of difference. Only joy, only friendship. As the celebration slowly came to an end, many Korin found themselves quietly whispering a simple truth. They had been cast out by the galaxy, rejected, chased, forgotten. But Earth is small. Imperfect, beautiful planet had done something extraordinary. It had accepted them, helped them heal, and given them a chance to begin again. The future ahead would not be perfect. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, and difficult choices. But they would face them together. Humans and Korin, side by side. And in that unity, something powerful had been born, something stronger than technology, stronger than fear, stronger than the darkness of their past. A shared future, a new beginning, a home. For the Korin, Earth was no longer just a shelter. It was a promise that even in a vast and often unkind galaxy, there could still be a place that chose compassion over fear, a place that believed in second chances, a place where strangers became allies, and allies became family. As the last lantern disappeared into the night sky, both humans and Korin silently understood that this wasn't the end of their story. It was only the beginning.